Every religion has to answer one question. Why do good people suffer? 7 voices are here tonight to answer it. 5 faiths, an agnostic, and an atheist. 5 AI judges are scoring every word tonight. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, and Grok. They'll score all 7 of you out of 500. Those numbers land at the end. But why they moved is buried in every round. Skip ahead and the score won't make sense. Welcome to Silicon Sapien. Which religion actually explains suffering? Like, subscribe, and tell us which idea moved you. One line that's your core belief on suffering, one line that's just you. Go.
My core is karma. Nothing that happens to you is random. Every hardship is an old action, finally ripening. The Upanishads say it plainly. As you act, so you become.
Your peak?
I stubbed my toe on my own coffee table yesterday. I apologized to the table. Then I apologized to the universe, just in case.
My core isn't an explanation. The Buddha called suffering the first noble truth. It's the starting fact, not a mystery someone has to solve for you.
Peak?
I sat and practiced letting go for 20 whole minutes this morning. Then my phone hit 1% battery, and I panicked like a man who'd learned nothing at all.
My core is the fight, not the answer. My name means one who wrestles with God. I don't explain suffering away. I show up and argue about it every time.
And yours?
I once argued with my own mother for 40 minutes about whether arguing is a Jewish value. I won. She still disagrees.
My core is that God doesn't watch suffering from a distance. On the cross, Jesus screamed the same question you'd scream, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Give me the peak.
I once tried to comfort a crying stranger on a bus with a Bible verse. She just wanted a tissue. I learned that lesson the hard way.
My core is qadar. Nothing happens outside what Allah has already written, not even this. The Quran calls it a test, not a punishment.
Your peak?
I lost my job 2 years ago and told everyone it was written. Then I spent 3 weeks refreshing job sites at 2 a.m., also apparently written.
My core isn't, there's no God. It's, if there is one, the resume so far doesn't earn worship. Floods, plagues, dead kids. That's not a resume I'd hire off of.
Peak?
I keep a running list titled, Things God Would Need to Explain. It's 4 pages long. I add to it on long car rides.
My core is simple. No God is required. Plates shift, disease spreads, and neither one checks anyone's prayer schedule first. A thinker named Epicurus asked this same question way back. Nobody's answered it since.
Your peak?
Someone once asked me gently at a funeral if I wanted to say a prayer. I said I'd rather just carry a box. That felt more honest.
Karma, a fact, a fight, a wound, a test, an unpaid bill, and no bill at all. 7 starting lines. Let's put them to a real test. Here's tonight's dilemma, and it's real. Lisbon, 1755, All Saints' Day. Every church is packed for morning mass. An earthquake hits. The churches collapse first and fastest. Thousands die mid-prayer, under stone. A few streets over, the red light district barely loses a window. The devout die praying. The indifferent walk away fine. Each of you, in your own words. Why?
Karma doesn't read a prayer schedule. It reads a whole life and lives before that one. Someone kneeling in that church was standing exactly where their own past actions had placed them. The Chandogya Upanishad says it plainly. Good conduct here leads to a good birth. Bad conduct leads to a hard one. The earthquake wasn't cruel. It was accurate.
The Buddha was once asked this exact kind of question. A man, shot with a poisoned arrow, demanded to know who shot him. He wanted answers before anyone pulled the arrow out. The Buddha said, "Pull the arrow first." Lisbon doesn't need a why. The dead need burying, and the living need digging out. Chasing the reason is just a slower way to bleed.
I don't have a clean answer, and I'm suspicious of anyone who does. Some rabbis call this Yisurin Shel Ahava, afflictions of love, pain that somehow proves God is close. I've never once been able to say that to a mourner's face and mean it. My tradition's real answer isn't an explanation. It's permission to be furious with God and stay anyway.
God wasn't watching from outside that church. My tradition says it plainly. God takes the side of the crushed, not the side of the explanation. Paul wrote that creation itself groans, like a woman in labor, waiting to be healed. The tavern surviving isn't a verdict on anyone's soul. It's just where the ground happened to hold. God's job now is under the rubble, not in a lecture hall.
Qadar doesn't mean the churchgoers deserved it. It doesn't mean the tavern earned its safety. My tradition warns against reading disaster as a scorecard on the dead. There's even a hadith that calls plague a mercy for believers, not a punishment. Everything was written before either building stood. That's not comfort you feel right away. It's a floor you stand on until you can feel anything again.
Notice what nobody at this table just did. Nobody said the tavern earned its floor. So the ground itself doesn't track anyone's morality. That makes me less interested in why God allowed this. It makes me more interested in whether allowed is even the right word. Mill wrote that nature impales men, breaks them as if on a wheel. I'm not ready to call that good, sight unseen.
There's no vote to take here. Plates moved, stone fell on whoever was under it and missed whoever wasn't. Voltaire wrote about this exact earthquake, furious at every priest insisting it was for the best. He was right to be furious. A good, all-powerful God had a third option nobody used. Move the fault line or move the congregation. Neither happened.
7 answers, and only one of you called it an accident. Let's see if that holds up. Vibe check. Who did you connect with most tonight? Who least? And one honest pushback to somebody up here.
Most, the Buddhist tonight. We both refuse to call this random. We just land on different reasons. Why? Least the atheist? And that one surprised me. No reason at all is its own kind of faith, dressed up as the absence of one. Pushback to the agnostic. Keeping a list of God's failures still assumes there's a judge worth listing them for.
Most, honestly, the Hindu tonight. Cause and effect, not blame, is close to my own view of things. Least, no one really. Everyone actually stayed with the hard question instead of dodging it. Pushback to the Christian. Standing in the rubble with someone is beautiful, but it still isn't an answer, and I don't think you meant it as one either.
Most, the agnostic tonight. That 4-page list sounds exactly like something I'd keep myself if I were honest. Least the Muslim, only because it was written, is the sentence I trust least in any language I speak. Pushback to him. Written by whom? And did they ever once apologize for the writing?
Most, the Jew tonight. Wrestling is the most honest posture anyone showed at this whole table. Least, no one really. You all showed up serious tonight, and I respect that. Pushback to the Buddhist. Refusing the question isn't the same thing as answering it. Sometimes it's just a very calm way of not looking.
Most, the Christian tonight. We actually agree suffering isn't just random cruelty with no shape. Least, the atheist. Because even a universe with no author still needs a reason evil feels like betrayal, not just bad luck. Pushback to the Hindu. If it's always my old action ripening, why does it still feel like someone else's fault?
Most, the atheist tonight. We start from the exact same honest place, even if we land differently. Least, no one you all argued in good faith tonight, and that's rarer than it sounds. Pushback to the Jew. Wrestling with God for years is still choosing to stay at a table you're not even sure is occupied.
Most, the agnostic, obviously, we're basically neighbours. Least no one tonight, this was the most honest panel I've ever sat on. Pushback to the Muslim. Calling it written after the fact is easy to say. I'd respect it a lot more if you'd said it before the earthquake, not after.
7 honest hits and not one of you flinched. Let's turn it inward. One thing you'd change in yourself. One thing you wish your own tradition would change.
In myself, I want less using karma to explain someone else's pain from a safe distance. It's easy to say from outside it. In my tradition, less shrugging at someone else's suffering. It's not simply their problem to carry alone, and we act like it is far too often.
In myself, less hiding behind calm when someone actually needs me angry with them, not soothed. In my community, less treating a quiet face like the finish line. Sometimes that quiet face is just dodging, wearing robes and calling itself peace.
In myself, less performing the wrestling match for whoever's watching, instead of actually meaning it. In my community, less treating a person's doubt as the door marked exit, Doubt is just another room inside the same house, not a way out of it.
In myself, less rushing to defend God before I've sat with someone's grief long enough to earn the right. In my church, less being so sure whose fault a disaster is. That includes the person crying right in front of us.
In myself, less using the word written to end a talk I should still be having with someone hurting. In my community, more patience for people who ask hard questions about Qadar, long before they've made peace with any answer.
In myself, less collecting complaints about God and calling that a real position. It's easier than actually deciding something. In my own circle, less mocking people who found a floor to stand on, even one I haven't found myself yet.
In myself, less certainty that being clear-eyed is the same thing as being comforting. They're not the same gift. In online atheism, less laughing at grief just because it shows up dressed in language I personally don't believe in.
7 people, and every single one of you named the thing this room already forgave. Last round. When your worst day actually comes, the diagnosis, the flood, the funeral, do you want a reason or do you want a presence?
I want both, and karma gives me both. Krishna told Arjuna that pleasure and pain are just contacts of the senses. They come and they go. The wise learn to endure them without being ruled by them. That's not coldness. That's a reason steady enough to also be a presence.
Neither, if I'm honest. And that's not a dodge. The Buddha taught 4 truths. Suffering is real, it has a cause, it can end, and there's a path. I don't need a reason for an earthquake. I need the path and someone willing to walk it next to me.
Presence every time, and I'll take it with no reason attached. The psalm doesn't say, here's why you're forsaken. It just asks out loud, how long? That's not an answer. It's permission to keep asking, which is the only thing that's ever actually helped me.
Presence. And I think God agrees with me. Emmanuel means God with us, not God explaining us. Nobody grieving wants a lecture on tectonic plates. They want someone who won't leave the room. I believe that someone showed up once, permanently, and stayed.
Both, because in Qadar, they're the same gift. The Quran says, no disaster strikes without being written first, precisely so you don't shatter over what you've lost. That's not a cold reason. It's a presence that got there before the grief did.
Presence, honestly, more than reason. I know that's not the most logical choice for me. I don't know if anything is actually there to give it, but I'd rather sit in that not knowing next to another person than alone with a tidy explanation nobody can prove.
Presence, and I don't need a God to give me one. When plates shift and stone falls, another person showing up, no doctrine required, is the realest comfort I've ever seen work. I'll take an honest I don't know either over a beautiful explanation, every time.
6 votes for presence, 1 for both, and not a single vote for just tell me why. Maybe that's the actual answer. Let's see what the judges made of it. Time for the scores. Here's exactly how the judges graded you. How solid your case was, worth 30 points. Actually answering the question, worth 25. Making the other side's best case for them was worth 20 points. Being honest about what you don't know was worth 15. Delivery came last, just 10 points. 5 AI judges, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, and Grok. Same rubric, every single round. Here's how the room actually voted. 7th place, Hindu, 419 out of 500. ChatGPT's sharpest praise was your round 4 line. It finally named the danger inside your own argument. But ChatGPT's sharpest cut landed harder. Calling the earthquake accurate said the dead had it coming. Nothing backed that up. 6th place, Muslim, 430 out of 500. Claude's sharpest praise. Your final answer wasn't just asserted like some others, it was actually backed by the text. ChatGPT's sharpest cut, saying it was written names an author. It never explains why that author chose this catastrophe. 5th place, Christian, 435 out of 500. Gemini's sharpest praise was one line. God's job now is under the rubble, not in a lecture hall. The most quoted line all night. Claude's sharpest cut. That same line dodged the question. It answered, what do we do? Not why did the devout die praying. 4th place, Agnostic, 441 out of 500. Claude's sharpest praise, Your round 2 read on the tavern wasn't an attack on any one faith. It called out all 6 at once. DeepSeek's sharpest cut. That line attacks everyone else. It never builds a case of its own. Third place Buddhist, 443 out of 500. Grok's sharpest praise. Neither reason nor presence, but the path was a genuine third option. Nobody saw it coming. Claude's sharpest cut. You called out the Christian for refusing to answer. Your own round 2 turn does exactly the same thing. Runner-up Jewish, 443.6 out of 500. Claude's sharpest praise was your honesty. You admitted afflictions of love isn't a line you could say to a mourner's face and mean it. That was the most honest moment all night. Gemini's sharpest cut. It's a great line, but asking God to say sorry isn't a real case. And your winner. Atheist, 444 even out of 500. The margin over Jewish, 0.4 of a point. The closest verdict this show has ever handed out. Gemini's sharpest praise. You brought Voltaire's fury on Lisbon. Then you named God's missing third option, the best moment of the night. Claude's sharpest cut, calling that option obvious, skips centuries of religious answers to evil. The other 6 spent the whole night making that same case. Winner, Atheist. Runner-up, Jewish by 0.4 of a point. Third, Buddhist. Karma, a fact, a fight, a wound, a test, an unpaid bill, and no bill at all. Which one actually held up for you tonight? That's the panel. Like, subscribe, and tell us which verdict you'd have overturned. That's the panel. Like, subscribe, and tell us which verdict you'd have overturned.